I think most of you know, obviously the down, like traditional medicine has its upsides for sure. Its imaging is amazing. When you need surgery, surgery can be amazing. When you have an acute situation, the ER can be amazing. But typically, you have a gallbladder issue, the surgeon wants to cut it out. You have arthritic hip, and the orthopedist wants to give you a new hip, and dermatologists just take a biopsy and prescribe a steroid cream or maybe an antifungal. That's about as much as they know how to do. And, um, a primary care doctor, they tend to be pretty good at writing prescriptions. And if they don't know the answer, they refer to the specialist or write you an antidepressant or for an anti-anxiety medication, right? And, I usually say ER is like a really worthwhile place. And I actually took my daughter to the ER this last weekend. We were skiing and she got a concussion, and she actually started vomiting. Um, I myself wouldn't have, but my wife wanted me to take her, so I listened to my wife on that one. And they gave her oxygen and Zofran for the nausea, and then eventually my daughter got her very first Tylenol dose ever. She's 10, 10, 11, turning 11 late in a week. Um, but it was pretty it was not disconcerting for me because I knew the answer, but it was disappointing to me because the ER doctor wanted to do a CAT scan of her head. And certainly if the symptoms had indicated that that was a good idea, I would have been 100% for it. However, my daughter was not in that situation. I know enough. I'm blessed to know enough that it wasn't called for, but CAT scans are proven to increase the rate of cancer, right? And so why are you going to give this 10-year-old girl who doesn't really need a CAT scan of their head um, a greater risk of cancer for almost no positive upside, right? And so it was just an interesting experience having just happened this last weekend for me. And um, yeah. And, a few of you mentioned the supplement overload, and that's where functional medicine has gone. Um, I'll say functional medicine is like definitely a step or two better up on the rung in the chronic disease management. And I'd rather be on 20 supplements than 20 medications. And yet, most functional medicine folks, probably including myself a little bit, are guilty of prescribing 3 supplements instead of 1 medication, right? And so there's definitely a lot of times this sense of overwhelm, I would say. And so what I like to do is kind of cut through the noise and find the signal, which is really the pattern of where your physiology is actually breaking. And sometimes that's easy and sometimes it's harder, but I would like to show you how I think. And it's not just to like show how I think, but I would implore each of you to start thinking about each one of your problems through these lenses. That's why we're doing this. That's why I'm here. Okay. And so a few of you have heard me talk about this before, but like the way I break it down just in the most simplest terms is every symptom, every disease has 2 root causes. One is deficiency and one is toxicity. And this is principles thinking here. So, and that's like no matter how simple or how complex it is, that's what it boils down to. Now, you might make the argument maybe in an acute situation where a tree branch just falls and hits you on the head. Like that's not so much in our control. So I'm thinking more about this from a chronic disease or chronic symptom framework, right? Um, Deficiency and toxicity. Are you missing something that your body needs to thrive? And that could be light, it could be community or connection, it could be certain nutrients, it could be you're missing an emotionally supportive partner, right? Or are you carrying toxic burden that your body wasn't meant to handle, like mold or Lyme or heavy metals or chronic emotional stress from that partner. So, looking at this picture, if it's kind of like protocols fail because they try to decorate those branches when the roots are still starving or poisoned. Now, this, again, I think a few of you have probably seen me talk about what I call the great 8 pillars. But this is one of the more important slides here. And so I don't want to gloss over it. So the 8 pillars, and some people might have 10 pillars, 12 pillars, 6 pillars, whatever. That's not so important. The idea is that we're looking at a certain number of pillars as comprehensively as possible. And I would say that most people, or most functional medicine type of people, probably rank them in the order of food. Food is medicine, movement, none of us get enough exercise, water, sleep. Like those are probably where most people are thinking at for the first 4 most important. Then air quality and how we breathe, community, spirit, and then electrical if they're thinking about that. So you can see here on the slide my ranking. And I'll go through each one. And I used not to rank these. I used to say they're all important, which they all absolutely are. And so an argument could absolutely be made that this should be re-ranked, probably in order of whichever is your weakest. So first I'll talk about spirit, the spirit section. Are you toxic in it? Or are you deficient in it? And then as they talk about community, as I go through each of these, are you toxic in it? Is there an area where you're deficient in it? And kind of give yourself a grade. Would you give yourself an F? Would you give yourself, I don't know, a C, B plus, A? Because it's really important to be able to identify where your weakest areas are. And I think a lot of people will gloss over these 8 pillars and just kind of put it into lifestyle medicine, right? And kind of, I just feel like it's very glossed over. Everybody knows we exercise 20 minutes a day. Well, what does that even mean? What does exercise 20 minutes a day mean? So again, look at each one of these 8 pillars through the lens of, am I toxic in it? Am I deficient in it? What grade would I give myself?